Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and today we're going to be working with some Simon Says Stamp products. This is Shine On. It's from their newest release called Among the Stars. I am pulling out the moon and the stars that are all on the strings, using my Simon Says Stamp grid paper to go ahead and line those up because I'm not using my Misty today. I'm just using a regular block, and the grid paper kind of helps everything be straight and really easy to pick up on one block. And I'm all about the easy. So I picked those up, and then I am going to be stamping with Intense Black Simon Says Stamp ink. This I'm using because I'm working on Canson watercolor paper. This is waterproof as well as Copic safe, and I'm going to be using both. So I haven't used these before, so I wanted to stamp off one time just to make sure I had a good impression. No weird like fuzzies or dog hair or anything like that going on. I have a dog, so that is known to happen in my household. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp these straight across. I had drawn a line previously, just a pencil line, to give myself a guide of where I was stamping them so that they would be straight. And since I'm taping this down to a board to do my watercolor background, I gave myself a little bit of a gap where the tape would be at the top. From here, I'm going to be using some liquid Misket from Grumbacher, and this is just like a latex that will protect those images while I do my watercoloring. And I have a paintbrush that is specifically designated for this because it does stay a little sticky even after you clean it out. You'll see on the right hand side there's another background I'm going to be doing. That's in a separate video, which I will link in the YouTube description below. If you're watching on my blog, both videos will be there, so you'll already know what this is all about. Here, because it's so liquid, you can use it to do splatters, which I thought would kind of mimic stars. So I'm just like you would clean water or really, like paint. I'm just splattering it on there to kind of, mimic those stars and mask just general areas. I have it all taped down here, and then I'm going to be using the Zig Clean Color pens to do my background. I'm literally just going to scribble these on like a child would. I'm not really being very careful about how much. I am trying to pay attention to where it goes, but really not too much. It's kind of hard to mess this up. It's so easy, and I love that because I'm all about the easy, as we learned earlier in the video. So I'm going to just kind of work in stages. I like to try to do the colors all together. If you mix them in general, and you'll see I make that mistake later on, if you just kind of start mixing them like I do here, you start to lose some of the colors. I started to lose a little bit of that purple into the blue. So just try to be conscientious and make sure that you are rinsing off your brush in between. These put down a lot of pigment and it stays on your brush. So if you just drag the same color through the whole thing, you're going to lose any of the separation that you have of color. So once I had on a base layer, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that. I like to do 2 layers because I like vivid backgrounds, but I also knew that I wanted to do some hand lettering. That's why this video is a little bit different and why I segregated it from the other card. I knew I wanted the middle to be lighter because that was where the majority of my hand lettering was going to be, and the stamping in this video was really just an accent. If this isn't for you, that's totally fine. You can watch this, you could do on any card this type of technique, and then you might want to skip the hand lettering part. That's fine. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Everybody's into different things. So here you can see I made that mistake where I just kind of dragged my brush all around and it just really got very blue. I decided to put some clean clear water in the middle and then bring out the clean clear water to the darker parts so I didn't lose all of the lightness in the middle. And then, of course, you can always scribble down. I'm working on a Ranger craft mat. You can always scribble down some color and add that back in, which is what I'm doing with the purple. And then I'm going to sprinkle just some clean clear water straight from my brush onto the background. This pushes the color out and creates almost like little starbursts and definitely some interest. If your areas do get too dark, then just with a dry cloth, you can just blot some up. And then I'm going to go ahead and heat set that again. I cut them all down. And I'm using just a damp baby cloth to kind of buff over those areas where the liquid Misket is, because when you rub them off with your finger, which it comes off super easy, you'll see here it's like super quick, but if there's color on top, you can rub that color onto your finger and then it'll get on the white images that you were trying to protect in the first place. So now here's where we're going to get into the hand lettering portion. This is just what works for me. You do whatever works for you. I line it up on my grid paper, and then I tape it down with just a little bit of washi tape, which isn't super sticky. And then I use a T-square ruler to create a grid on my background. This is just gives me really good placement. And then I also like to give myself a little bit of a border. Usually I do one square, and then I'll go ahead and continue the grid with the rest of the 1 by 1 inch squares that are included on this paper pad. And again, you might be more into like a free flowing. I prefer mine be a little bit more lined up. So I tried to show you some of this is me just starting out, first time just writing the word love. I want to combine this with my stamping. It's something that I've wanted to try for a while. And so I'm just kind of figuring it out right from the beginning what I want to do. This is my, it's like cheater's calligraphy. So basically I just write the word, and then all of your, in calligraphy, your downstrokes should be the wider ones. So then I'll go back in with my pencil and thicken up those lines. I'm also just handwriting the words that I know I'm going to stamp later so I can kind of get some placement. Started off with one type of M, didn't really like it, so I'm going to get the eraser. Now, my preferred eraser is a gum eraser. That's just what I feel like I have better luck with. It's always clean, but there's a lot of leftovers, like a lot of shedded pieces. So the other one that I like is there's a Prismacolored pencil, a white eraser that I really like as well. So here I'm just making sure the love and the moon, they're both 4 letters. I want them to kind of be lined up. And then I erased the moon again because I felt like the middle was a little blank. So I'm going to do just a little bit of a banner here. Everything that I do, I always do in pencil first. I'll go back and ink it later, but with pencil, you can kind of change it up, see what you've got going on, see if you like it, because if you spend all that time on that background, you don't want to, just draw, whatever on top of it with an ink pen, and then you're stuck with however it looks. So I apologize for my head. I get right on top. I get right on top of my images when I am drawing them out. So you'll see my head peek in there from time to time. I was struggling just a little bit with this banner and how it needed to go. So I just kept kind of fidgeting with that a little bit. And that's the other thing with the grid lines, like something for a banner. I can see where it should start and where it should end, so that everything is kind of even because I have those lines there. Once I was happy with that, then I went ahead and wrote the moon portion of it. And originally I thought I was going to do a drop N. I didn't really like the way that looked, so I was like, well, maybe I'll spread it out a little bit so it's a little bit more even with this banner in the middle. So then I ended up adding just like little flourishes, little loops that were leading into my letters, and I didn't like the way it looked with that drop N. You can see me kind of checking things out there. So I just went ahead and erased that and then left the N on the regular line with all the other letters and added just something on the end. So now I'm going to do the stamping portion of it. So right now it just says Love Moon. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So we're going to add in some stamping. I'm using black ink from Simon Says Stamp. It's a really good crisp ink. And then I'm using a full Post-it stick note to block off the other letters. Please clean them off in between. If your stamp is dirty, you will stamp it down on your card panel or whatever you're going to do with this at the end of the day. So I'm just inking up the parts that I want to stamp. So I have the love, I need the U, and I need the to the, which is going to go in the middle of that banner. And then at the end, it will say and back, which I stamped underneath the moon. You get the idea of what's going on here. So we're just going to go ahead and move on to the next portion. I like the EK Success writing pens. This is just, I use them in my regular everyday card making. And I like them very much for inking things. So I'm using a smaller, I prefer to use a smaller nib to do my first round of inking. This is, I think, a 0.25 that I'm using. And then, like I said, thickening up those letters. The pack that I buy is a 5-pack, and it goes all the way up to a 65. So I pick like a 45 or a 65 to color in those darker portions. Just because it would take forever with that smaller nib. It's just not necessary when you have other size nibs that you can use. So I draw it out, I thicken up the lines, and then color them in. That's how I do through the whole thing. And I'm going to keep right on doing that all the way through to the bottom of the saying, I love you to the moon and back. And like I said before, your downstroke should be the thicker one. So when you're writing, pay attention to what your downstrokes are if you're going to be faking calligraphy like I am here. Once I'm done with all of that, I'm going to erase everything, all of the grid lines, all of my drawing, writing in the background, and then I'm going to go back in with a thicker marker, which is this one I think is a 0.35. And you can see it just really makes it stand out a little more. It's much easier to see, especially on camera. And also, I find that the second time around, I'm much more confident with my stroke. So the lines aren't as shaky. I already have something there to kind of follow along with. I'm just more, and now by this time it's like the 600th time I've drawn it. So I'm just more confident, and that makes for better inking. So once I was done with that, I wanted to go in and add just a little bit of shading in, especially to this banner. A lot of times when I am doing this, I started doing hand lettering because I was Bible journaling. And so everything was really just black and white. Unless you use colored pencils, it's kind of difficult to add color to a Bible without it bleeding through. And my journaling Bible is still a Bible that I read. So I didn't want it to be bleeding in the background. So usually I just do some very light black and white inking. Here I can kind of play with color just like I do with stamped images, which I really like, so I wanted to add in some shading. I opted for the warm grays because that's also what I wanted to do my moons in. And so I just did like the darker shading on the left-hand side as if my light source was from the right. I really did not pay too much attention as far as light source in any other way whatsoever. I really just wanted it to be about combining that stamping with the hand lettering because I have a love for both at the moment. Well, I have a love for stamping all the time. I'm not sure how much the love of hand lettering is going to win out, but we just started, so so we'll see how it goes. Here I'm using the lightest yellow to color in all of the stars, and then I only added shading to some of them. I left some of them just super light. Some of them I added just a second round of shading with the Y13. Some of them I added full shading with the YR15. It was just kind of to keep the top interesting. I didn't really have a game plan as I was, adding them. Some I did, some I didn't. And then that's, basically as for the shading, that's pretty much all that I had going on there. I went from my lightest to my darkest, darkest back out to my lightest when I did the full shading. And then I felt like this banner was a little empty. So I decided to add just a couple of little, filler pieces on each side to kind of fill that in. And I like that much better. Normally I wouldn't do this just freehand. Normally I would do it with a pencil first, and I wouldn't recommend freehanding it because you might end up with something that you don't love, but I don't know, apparently I was in a free spirit mood and just went ahead and decided to commit to that. I also decided I was going to add in some shadows to the lettering because this is what I would do if these were stamps. Like if I had bought a stamp set that was a large love and a large moon, I would add shadows to those. So I definitely wanted to do it here to really make it feel like it was, something that was my own. So I started with the W5, and then I did it as if, again, the light source was from the top right-hand side, so all the shadows would be to the bottom left. So from the W5 to the W3 to the W1, just to blend it out. I did them, all exactly the same lines. And really, I like the way that it turned out. I felt like, I could frame it and put it in my son's room, or I could turn it into a card, which is ultimately what I ended up doing. But there was just lots of things that I could have done. In order to keep all of the blacks the same color, I always outline all of my images, and I did the stars just freehand, but I did bust out my T-square ruler to reinforce those lines. And then I'm going to add some shimmer with some clear Wink of Stella. I did cut this down and then add it to a regular size card, which was, and I added a little more stars. I forgot about that. just with a white gel pen. I just added some more dots to kind of fill in the top of that. I already had the ones that were there because of the liquid biscuit. But so I did cut it down, and then I just adhered it to a white card base, and that is the entire card. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you guys would like to see more stuff like this, then please by all means leave me a comment and let me know. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.